All ready? Great. Welcome, everybody. I would like to call the regular Moab City Council meeting to order on May 23rd, 2023 at 6:01 p.m. And Nick, would you mind leading us in the pledge this evening?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Nick. All right, we'll move right into citizens to be heard. And I know we have a couple of citizens here this evening. If you wouldn't mind filling out a form when you have a chance so we can get your name and the information we need. And if you wouldn't mind coming up and state your name and 3 minutes. So who would like to come first?
I guess I have to go first. Miriam said. Can I sit down?
Yes, please.
I'm rather nervous. Anyway, my name's Lydia Young. I live on 690 West 400 North, the northwest corner of Hale and 400. And my concern is with the amount of oversized vehicles that are being parked along 400 North pretty much every weekend, lots of other times. So I'm going to kind of read this. I didn't realize that there was a 400 word limit. Hopefully I'm under that, but since the old hospital has been fenced off, I and others have become more concerned with the amount of oversized vehicles, sometimes as long as 50 feet, parked both overnight and sometimes left for several days along both sides of 400 North. Our neighbors, the Easons, and my husband, Warren Young, and I have brought the issue to council members in the past. We do now have signs in front of our two homes indicating that these are resident parking only, which we appreciate. I think, Tana, you helped us with that a couple of years ago. I believe that this parking issue needs to be readdressed as this has become a safety issue along this section of 400 North. I've been driving around the main sections of Old Moab and nowhere have I seen a similar situation to this section next to the Entrada. And I know there used to be a problem with these big oversized vehicles along Williams Way, and that seems to be addressed and don't see much of them there. When these oversized vehicles are lined up along the old hospital side, there is barely enough room to walk between the fence and the vehicles on that side of the sidewalk. When these trailers and toy haulers are parked on both sides, 400 North becomes close to becoming a one-way street where cars have had to wait. I've had to wait while somebody passes on the other side. The owners of these trailers often use the street for loading and unloading and warming up these toys. Some of the combos are left overnight while the toys are parked inside. When the spaces across from the Entrada fill on a busy weekend, the oversized vehicles park next to Grand Oasis, loading and unloading. This is across the street from us. And we've seen them making fast U-turns in front of our house. There have been occasions when the tow vehicle is an RV, and I have seen electric cords running from the nearby unit over the sidewalk to the street. There are a few spaces inside the Entrada that are long enough for these oversized vehicles, but usually are taken up. Last week, I noticed that even though at least one of those spaces was available, the truck and trailer sat in the same space for at least 3 days. I spend a good deal of time working in my front yard and notice the number of locals who use 400 North. Walkers with dogs, strollers and small children, kids who lived in Grand Oasis on their way to and from school, lots of families on bikes. When Entrada was built, the close neighbors were assured that there would be plenty of parking available. With the introduction of these oversized toy haulers and trailers, there is not. Since it is not illegal, something needs to change. Some of the things I believe might help: signage as to the length of vehicles, combo of truck and trailer, and what type of vehicles are allowed to park on city streets, not just our street, but lots of other places. What is overnight parking of these vehicles on the city streets? I believe we could put reinstate the bike lanes that are along 400 North. There's still paint on the pavement there for those things. And then education as to parking restrictions along the city streets for out-of-towners who come to places like the Entrada, thinking they will find free parking on the city streets next to their rental. And then last of all, enforcement of whatever restrictions are decided upon. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And as a side note, I covet your yard every time I drive by it. Someday when I'm a grown up, I'll have one like it.
Yes, well, that's what happens to retired teachers, right? Do I leave this here?
Sure, that would be great.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm Marian Eason and I live at 698 West, 400 North, next door to Lydia and Warren. And I reiterate a good bit of what she said. All of you have received numerous emails from me along with photos. In addition to the comments that Lydia has made, and I mentioned this in my email, we've had people offloading in the middle of the night. And I know that there are people who are very responsible, but there are some that are quite irresponsible. And I don't know how you address that. I would like to see some kind of a sign, if possible, across the street, similar to what we have in front of our houses, thanks to the city, that says residents parking only. And that long stretch across the street along Grand Oasis has plenty of room for big vehicles. So it's a magnet, and that to me is residential. It's the fence for Grand Oasis, and there are people who park there themselves or have family and friends who park there. And so I would like to suggest that that is looked at, a possible signage there. I'd also like to mention that in my driving around, I noticed that with the more density housing that is added, for instance, these apartments that are popping up like next to Workforce Services and all over town that look identical. I've looked at the parking lots that they have there, and I know that they are not overnight rentals, but most of them can be rented for 30 days, which is an invitation to some people to rent an apartment and then come back and forth. There's no place for any oversized vehicles in those parking lots. It's all car length. So that to me is also a potential problem. The more dense housing we get with auxiliary buildings and that kind of thing, the more problem we're going to have with parking. With the old hospital, supposedly that's going to be developed into similar kinds of apartments, and they should have adequate parking there, but it also could eliminate parking for Entrada by whatever construction that they have. And as I said in my emails to you, they advertise, not only they advertise, but other of these large apartments, that they can hold 12 to 14 people a unit. And these are 3 and 4 bedroom units. And so you can just imagine what it's like on an Easter weekend when we might have 500 to 600 people half a block away with their toys. And so I just hope that there's some way we can address a solution or some kind of an approach to make it better. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Nick Eason, same address as Marion, 698 West, 400 North. I really can't add much to what the two of them have already said. Just simply that we realize that under current conditions, current regulations, the city doesn't have much that they can do. But I think there are some creative solutions or things that can be done to improve it. Lydia has suggested some of it in her note here, and I think it's time to look for some of the creative situations that may be out there, and then also just keep in mind what's happened here as just one more warning of many you have with problems that you're facing every day on the things that are going on in development. And that's all I have.
Thanks.
I have my name up in front of you. I'm Warren Young. I live on the corner 690 West 400 North. It's a dangerous choke point there is what I found because I was turning west onto 400 North one afternoon. Place was packed both sides. It's a zoo there, and they're good people. They're having fun. They're tourists. They don't know that that's a street that hundreds of people commute on every day. And so they're out walking around, and I'm got my wheel on the left lane on the yellow line. And on the first entrance out of Entrada, these two little guys on their little electric bikes, they fire on me there. And I was past him. I hit the brakes, wouldn't have done anything, but he pulled this great little bailout turn and he didn't hit me. But that's a potential of what's happening there. The trailers are 108 inches wide and they stack there. We've had numerous times, I say half the trailers that come there just park empty all week. Okay. A possibility is finding parking. Okay. There's lots of spaces up by Archway Inn, but that gives you guys way more work than you need to find out the landowners up there, come up with scenarios for parking, all that. But it would help alleviate that congestion. And I don't know, again, the signs, residence parking only. I don't know what Ben Bird's gonna do on his side. But it's a problem that's not getting better, and it's not just where we are. Like La Quinta has a lot of big parking behind their building for trailers. Some places will park right on 191 on the Moab Valley Hotel there. So put the bike lane back in, some signs. I mean, even they're really good people. They're just tourists that don't understand their impact on the community. And I think that's pretty much what you guys and what comes to it has to be easily enforced. The code enforcement people, they can't be out measuring trailers and doing it. It's too much already. And it's almost a full-time job to find parking. If you would find parking lots for these people and set them up, they still might not want to use them. And then Entrada might not be really want that either, because that's going to lessen their volume if people have to park away from their. Most people take them out of there, play with them in front of their buildings and don't use their trailer, probably half of them. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Anybody else? Citizens to be heard. Okay, thank you all for coming. I know that Jared's aware of the situation and we'll see what we can do to help you out.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we also got a letter from Neil Clark regarding Cane Creek Road improvements. He was going to come tonight and speak. But something came up and he wasn't able to do that. So I encourage you to read his letter. He's very much in support of the complete street concepts and the medians and the greenscaping and trying to make sure that Cane Creek doesn't turn into an alternate bypass. And so the plans that we'll hear more about tonight, I think, address that issue. But read that email when you have a minute. All right, we have 3 department head updates. We'll start with you, Lisa.
Good evening, everybody. I'll be brief, but I wanted to just give you an update on the website redesign process that we have just started. And the purpose of doing the redesign is something that's included in our contract every 5 years. We get to, if we want to, redesign the look of the website, basically. And the purpose of this, in my view, is to sort of freshen the look of the website and modernize it a bit, but also to create a more user-friendly site where people can find information more easily, and we can streamline the way they access forms and applications and other kinds of information and materials there. What Civic Plus will be doing is basically a redesign of what they call the skin of the website, which is the look that carries throughout the website. And then myself and Summer and Annie are also on the redesign team with me, as well as all the departments will be involved at some point, because I'll be asking everyone to go in and identify forms that are old that keep showing up when people do searches, so that we can eliminate those and make sure we have the most current information available. And I will appreciate any input from the council. I'm going to be sending you tomorrow morning a link that Civic Plus provided to me that shows a lot of the newly redesigned websites that they've done. These are customers like us that have been with them for a while and they were due this time. But I'll also send you individual links to a few of the cities in Utah, and there are quite a few who use Civic Plus, but you can take a look at, and you'll notice some common denominators in how the new websites are designed, because it's usually based on whatever's most popular right now. But I'd like you to take a look at some websites. Shoot me an email with a link and a description of specific features that you like on those websites, or ways that information is sort of set up to be accessed. And then I can talk with Civic Plus throughout the design process about if that's something that we can implement, if it's part of our contract. And I'll be asking the staff to do the same thing, but I really would like some input from y'all, because I know I've heard from several of you at different times concerns about how information is accessed, and I share those concerns, quite frankly. So we're going to work to make it more efficient, and also, in addition to more attractive, also just more usable. I mean, this is really for our residents, and it's a service that we provide, and we want people to be able to use it as easily and find the information that they want without feeling like they're going down a rabbit hole to locate it. So I'll send that out tomorrow, and I'll also kind of let you know what timeline I might need that information back from you at that time. We do have a timeline for the redesign. We expect it to be completed and ready to launch sometime in October at this point. So the process that Civic Plus uses now is a bit faster. I mean, last time I think it was a full 9 months, in the redesign process. But they'll be working on all of the visual stuff in the background, while our website is still operating, and then it will magically launch as the new site when the time comes. So that's where I'm at right now with that. I'm very excited about it, because 5 years ago, when I had first started and we did the redesign, it certainly was an improvement over the functionality of the website we had under the former platform. The platform really hasn't changed much, but they have some new widgets and some new options that we can build into our website that weren't available when we did this redesign. So I'm looking forward to it. I hope you are too. And does anybody have any questions?
I guess I have one, Lisa. It's exciting. Thank you. I'll look for your email. Sometimes I don't understand if it's with some limiting factors, if it's the Civic Plus platform or another issue. But I think at least those of us on council have, and probably staff have come upon the situation where sometimes you're looking for an older city document, and sometimes main wording, search, you'll find it, but other times you're like, well, I know it's in here somewhere, but I don't know how to find it. Does that have more to do with how the information is input or the platform? Or I just wasn't sure if we can improve something like that.
I think
Yeah.
that it's sort of a combination of things from what I've been able to figure out so far. And I really have like sort of researched this quite a bit because the search function is not ideal on our website right now. We do have a lot of our information now categorized if you go into the main part of the website, the archive and
Yeah.
all of that. But one of the things that happens is, you do a search and you find, 500 things and you're looking for something very specific and it's really frustrating. And that's something that I will be talking to Civic Plus about and hoping that if it's not something in their platform that they can tweak for us to make it better, that they'll at least have some advice for us about how to improve on our end the material that's there. I do know that dating way back to when the site first launched, which was in 2011 or something like that, I think the older platform had a different process for how you put in new documents. I mean, now if I'm going to replace, let's say the fee schedule, I just replace it so that the old one no longer shows up. But there are old documents from planning and from, the treasurer's office and a wide variety of the departments that are just buried in there somewhere. And part of the process that we'll be going through is going through that document center on the back end and looking for as many of those old documents as we can find and just absolutely eliminating them so they won't show up in a search.
Okay. Do they get deleted or archived somehow, just in case someone had to look for it? I don't know at what point and stuff.
They
Yeah.
would be what we call unpublished.
Okay.
But there's now a box I can check that says do not show up in searches, on things that we unpublish if we want to keep them. I mean, some of them are just so old that.
Yeah,
there's no
no,
need to
every
look
once in a
in.
while, I think as a council member, you're wondering, oh, I wonder what the historic fee was or something. That would be the only thing that,
Yeah, and the fee documents and things like that, we definitely have a way to like make sure they're there and we can find them for you, but it's not something we really need the public to have to,
Yeah.
sort of dig through to find the most current one, but yes,
oh, cool,
yeah,
thanks.
they won't completely go away. They'll just be unpublished.
Any other questions for Lisa? All right.
All right.
Thanks, Lisa. We'll
you
look for
very
your
much.
email. We'll do our research and
Awesome.
keep us posted.
Nice to see
Thank
you
you.
all.
Mhm. All right, next we have Alexi here to talk to us about sustainability, specifically, I think, on streetlights. Am I
Yeah,
correct?
yes, thank you. I have presentation materials just so you can, I figured it's been a while since you've heard about dark sky stuff, so I'll go through a little bit of the earlier pieces of it just as a reminder. Okay, so basically one of the reasons we're looking at this photo is because this is a Schaefer Overlook in Canyonlands and the sky glow is Moab. So that's one of the reasons that we're talking about dark skies, and that having lights that face down and that are a warmer color and the appropriate brightness have health benefits for us. It helps people in the city see night skies, and it also helps support some of the surrounding parks that all have dark skies for them to also have that. And several state and national parks in the area have gone through the process and have dark sky designations already. Okay, so we are in the process, the application process to become a dark sky community. However, we are in phase 1, the initial inquiry still. We have paid the fee in the past to start an application, but we have some holdups that are on the requirements for the certification. A lot of things are already done or on the way. We have a city code, which we are planning to update with some more current practical pieces of it, but that one is partially existing and partly on the way. Community support, education, evidence of light pollution. We have them either already or they are in the works. We also have volunteers who measure the brightness of our sky on a quarterly basis, which we can also report and put in as part of our application. And then when we get around to it, we will plan the acknowledgement sign, but I feel like that's sort of the last piece. The city compliance is one of the challenges. Friends of Arches and Canyonlands and Dark Skies have gotten grants that let individuals work on replacing lights at their house. So that's a nice thing that kind of contributes to overall community. However, city properties we've started on here in city center, there have been a few replacements. We've also done an evaluation. I think that that is doable, and we are moving forward with that. Public Works has been really helpful. Street lights fall into two major categories: city owned and Rocky Mountain Power owned. We have a plan, which I'll talk about, that we're starting for city owned lights, and the Rocky Mountain powered ones are a different situation, and I'd appreciate your feedback on it. Okay, so we already have an inventory of all the streetlights that fall in these categories. Mila worked on this, our engineering department. There were some students who put all of this together. So we have a pretty good idea of how many lights there are, what they should be in terms of distribution patterns and lumens, so forth. And the subset of those that are city owned include some of these decorative type fixtures that you've seen around. And we have talked to a vendor who can retrofit these for us if we decide. The bell-shaped ones there that are taller, we don't have a whole lot of those, so we can decide they're already compliant in terms of being fully shielded, but their color is not warm enough. So we have gotten a quote to change those out, and it would be $6,000 for 8 of these. But mostly because what they're going to have to do is they're going to take spec sheets and they're going to fit them to those. So we can keep asking on those, or we can skip those and look just at the like decorative ones that we see along Main Street. And I was talking to Public Works about this, so we can get them to create a demo that we could put on some of the ones here, like around City Hall, and then they would be easy to compare. They have a 2000 Kelvin color, which would be pretty warm. And they also have 2750, which would be closer to the kinds of things that Rocky Mountain Power, well, we'll get to that. It would also be a warmer color that is compliant. So anything below 3000 or below would be considered dark sky compliant at this point. Okay, so the two options we have right now for the decorative fixtures is we can retrofit the existing fixtures. We can work with somebody to create these sort of plugins, and you can see kind of what that would look like on the first 2 photos. The third photo would be if we replaced it. Those are the fixtures that are spec'd for the dispersed parking plan, and those will be going in. They just won't replace everything on Main Street because they're excluded from that plan. So those are our 2 options there. The retrofitting will be less expensive. However, the replacements would probably be a longer term fix because the ones we have right now are already out of production. So as those fail, they're going to have to be replaced. I would appreciate any feedback on whether you prefer retrofitting or replacing. Currently, we're in the direction of retrofitting just because it would save costs and it would last. The lighting piece of it would last as long as those do. The fixtures that are going out are ones that are, for example, being hit by a car. Any thoughts?
What's like the price differential between retrofitting and replacing?
Right now, we only have a rough estimate on the retrofitting because what we will need to do is send them a fixture and they'll scan it and then they'll be able to tell us exactly how much it costs. They've given us kind of a range between $500 and $700 per light. The other fixtures, I've been told ballpark 2000, something like that, but I need to get more specific numbers on the replacement number.
Thoughts for Lexi?
How many of them total?
I need to check on the exact number of the total decorative.
Just trying to get a sense of what the total cost.
Yes, that makes sense. And I can get back to you with the total number.
Lexi and
Mhm.
Carly, do you remember, did we have funds set aside in the budget
Yes.
for retrofit and replacement? Yeah, yeah.
we
So maybe
do.
when we get the price, we can see how that compares to what was in there. So,
Mhm.
okay, cool.
Any other suggestions? Replace, retrofit?
Seems like retrofit might be I agree with you. Blessing. Half the cost.
Okay, I will get the specific comparison for the exact number of fixtures we have, and I will get back to you. Moving on to the Rocky Mountain Power owned fixtures. They have spec'd their own fixtures. They're available in 4,000 and 3,000 Kelvin color. So 3,000 is technically dark sky compliant. They are LEDs. They would save energy, as are the ones that we would use for the decorative fixtures the city owns. These are kind of examples of the types that we currently have versus the fixture that they're offering. Mila, I think it was about a year ago in February, did a demo where there were 6 locations and people could come by and fill out a survey and tell the city what they thought about them. I went through the comments. So there were 28 comments and some of them had multiple issues in what they said. The major complaints were they're too bright, they should be warmer than 3,000, and that people were concerned about excessive light trespass into their homes. Which led the city, from my understanding, to investigate options that would allow us to have a warmer color temperature to address some of those. And currently, I've talked to Rocky Mountain Power about it. The fixture they're offering is offered in a 27K currently, so it could be warmer, except they only offer 3,000 and 4,000K. So what they have told me is that we can either select their 3,000 Kelvin fixture. We can pay Rocky Mountain Power to delamp our fixtures and put up our own, which would be a similar solution to what is done on Main Street with decorative fixtures. Or we can purchase everything Rocky Mountain Power has that's lighting related, and we could own and operate it.
Interesting.
So this is the major hangup on our application, because we need a plan to be compliant as a city. And currently the city's preference is to be something warmer than 3,000K, and Rocky Mountain's power offerings of 3,000 and 4,000. There's no overlap. So yeah, I would appreciate direction on that one too.
So when we talk about delamping, what does that mean?
Delamping would mean that they would leave their poles up, but they would take the lights out, and we would put up something else somewhere else instead. So we wouldn't be using their fixtures or their poles. We wouldn't use their infrastructure. They would just take their lights down and we could put something else up somewhere else.
They'd leave the poles, just like the Cobra, they would take off.
That's my understanding.
So I was at a conference with Ben and we were walking around talking to lighting people. And tell me if I'm wrong, Ben, on this, but it seemed like what they were all telling us, and I don't know if this is true or not, that you couldn't tell the difference between 3,000 and 2,700 with the naked eye.
That's my understanding too. The difference between 27 and 3,000, you probably couldn't tell with the naked eye. If you go warmer than that, you might be able to tell the difference.
Do you guys remember in the demo which amounts we were contrasting? Sorry, I've just forgotten the numbers. 3,000 versus.
It was 3,000 was the demo.
Okay, we only did 3,000. I couldn't remember if we did more than one. Okay.
But so if we're shooting for 27,
That's if we were using the same fixture that they are offering, it goes down to 27. However, that's not something Rocky Mountain Power is offering. In the street fixtures, like that the city owns and operates, we can go down to 2,000.
So if we stick with the 3,000, does that keep us out of compliance for the IDA application?
It is compliant.
Okay.
3,000 is their maximum. So
Got
it is IDA compliant. And to elaborate on that a little, what I understood in my last call with Rocky Mountain Power is that they are running out of the high pressure sodium fixtures that we currently have, that they shipped a few out here to continue to replace them. But when they are done with those, they're just going to start putting up the LED fixtures. That's their next course of action.
Did I hear there had been some discussion? I know back when we did the demo for the community and many people in the community felt like they were too bright, that started this discussion of, okay, well, maybe, we can go less bright. And then there was this question of, could Rocky Mountain Power do less bright or would we have to take them over ourselves? And, what would it cost and what would our capacity do to handle them ourselves? I feel like there has since also been maybe a mention of, if we went with 3,000 and they say they're brightest when they start and then it decreases a bit, but I think the mayor mentioned to me there might be a possibility of then also getting some kind of, I don't think it was, we've always been able to have the option of shields for extra
Mhm.
money, but I think, did you say there's actually an option? Yeah, for that's what it is, a filter. And I'm guessing that would be yet another thing we'd be buying, right? Is that an
I
option?
think we would, that is an option. They said that they were fussy and that they didn't like them.
Mhm.
However, it is a possibility that we could look into. They probably would be a separate cost for the city.
Okay, it's not like we can go up there and put colored cellophane or something. Okay.
Do we know a cost of what it would be if we were to take over ownership of them? It's pretty expensive.
I've asked for a quote, but they haven't given one to me. So it's been almost 2 weeks. So I'm waiting for that.
From what you've seen and and maybe, Kaylin and the rest of you have opinions about this. Does it seem like a good deal, given our limited options, to go with the 3,000 and then the filter and or shielding? I mean, would you ever shield everyone? I mean, I know the idea behind the shielding is like if it's near a home or something, you're shielding that side, but
The
there any-
quotes that we have,
Yeah.
I think they're probably from 2021, so the cost may have changed.
yeah, I
But
think it
they
was
were, I
like
think
50 or something.
I think it was 37, but
Okay.
then that range.
Yeah,
So I would
no,
have to
it's
get a
not
new
cheap,
quote.
but
And then
yeah.
overall, this again was a 2021 quote. It was, I think, 92,000 to do it. And there was a 3-year payback to do LEDs because we'd be saving electricity.
Yeah.
So it seems like if 2,700 is not perceptibly different than the 3,000 K,
Mhm.
then we might as just go with that, except that there's the public perception that then we weren't responsive. But maybe if we did another trial with two like close enough, we could demonstrate that, which would be a little extra effort, but it might help with public perception, as well as giving us the chance to really ground truth that. I think we're contemplating lowering the maximum kelvins to 2,700 in general, just because those are widely available. And even if there's not a ton of difference, my understanding is that it does reduce sky glow. The bluer the light is, the more it tends to radiate upwards and affect
That's true.
sky glow, which is part of the glow. Part of the goal is to eliminate that or reduce it as much as possible. So there may be value. So then if we do reduce that, like in the code to 2,700, but we go with 3,000 because that's what Rocky Mountain Power offers, do we need to have some workaround, either in the code or how we rationalize it? So this is not a definitive answer to what direction, but these are some of the thoughts that occur to me. How do we navigate this? Also, kind of on top of that, is there a change that like they might change the requirements for dark sky compliance to go to a lower kind of like Kelvin later on?
I've heard that from people, but I haven't seen it. And IDA has not told me that. So I'm not sure. I could verify with them, with our contact, that one, whether they're thinking about doing it, and two, if they did it, if it would change our status.
Do we know, is Rocky Mountain Power the provider for any of the existing communities that have international dark sky designation?
They are.
Okay.
Some of them did unconventional things to get below 3,000 K, but 3,000 K is considered compliant.
Okay.
So,
do we dare mention what the unconventional was, or just
well,
keep
they
that in
ended
mind?
up in a payment plan for all the equipment that they took.
Okay.
I mean, is the explanation for it.
Okay.
The one thing we haven't done is seen what they look like shielded. I don't think any of the demos were shielded. And so we really don't know what that looks like. And then also one of the things they told us was that the brightness of the lights would dim over about 6 months. I think you mentioned that, Ronnie. It might be interesting to do another demo to see if there is a difference, and with some shielded lights, just to see what that looks like. I don't know what you guys think about that, but
Do a long-term demo.
Yeah.
It's what we want, shielded and I don't know, is there one that's out there that's 6 months old?
Yeah,
Sitting on the
it's-
shelf?
All of them
You
are.
know,
All the six that
Well-
are out there.
I thought some of them had the side shields installed.
I don't think so. I don't think
Think so. But we could add them. I mean, then we would know what they look like at 6 months old and shielded. And you can put the shields on any of the four sides. I think only one of them, but any of the four. So they can be street side, house side, left, right.
I think it's also important to bear in mind, like my observation, looking at them myself is that if I walk around at night, looking up at streetlights, they look
Right.
bright and glary. And there's some inherent bias against them
Right.
when you're observing them.
Mhm.
And that's what we all did, is we drove by them and looked at them.
There was actually one comment that was like, next time I'll have to not stare directly at them.
Yeah.
I mean, I do know when we discussed shields last time, yes, they have a real cost to them. And I'm trying to remember, are we talking about like 415 lights? Does that sound right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yes,
something
that's-
about
Okay, so
about
I could run the
right.
math there, but, yeah,
That's all the lights.
That's all the.
Yeah,
These
and
are
I-
all
Not all
the
of them
street
are-
lights.
Not all of them are RPM,
Yeah.
though.
I
No,
know.
not all of these are Rocky
yeah.
Mountain Power. That's all of the lights. Some of those are going to be ours. Most of them are Rocky Mountain.
Yeah, and it sounds like they're, even if we said we could afford and we wanted to buy filters, it sounds like they're somewhat hesitant to install them or,
They are, but I can
Mhm.
also investigate.
okay, might just be
How,
interesting to know
how
the cost.
fussy,
Yeah.
like how
Okay.
difficult is that?
Okay,
And also what's the capacity of staff to be able to manage them? I mean, right now, Rocky Mountain is responsible for them, for everything. And if we took them over, what's our capacity to be able to manage that?
No, street lighting utility.
Right.
I would recommend.
And there's no option for like lower wattage to like kind of deal with the brightness issue, is there?
There is, we can pick lumens to a certain extent. So if we decided after 6 months, they're still too bright, we could talk to Rocky Mountain Power about specifying lower lumens, which would just make them seem a little dimmer, or they would be dimmer. The trade-off there is depending on where they are and how dim, there could be safety issues. So we would just need to measure those two things.
What do you guys want to do?
Can't we put dimmer switches on them?
Guns, BB guns.
I hear the Miller moths are coming back, one layer of moths. will be
There we
doing.
go.
Well, some lights do have dimmers and they are perhaps, as I understand it, they may be dim during the wee hours of the morning when there's less real need for them.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's at the hospital they do.
Yeah, and didn't Chuck mention that's potentially what they're gonna be implementing in the dispersed parking plan, that they kind of have like staged like brightness throughout the evening? I'm assuming Rocky Mountain Power doesn't offer anything like that.
No.
I can talk to them more about to the extent that they can do that. See if we have options to get dimmer over like at night. Let's say if we wanted at midnight or 3 a.m. or something like that for them to go. And it's actually a requirement of the new checklist for IDA, like community designation, is that we do need to include adaptive lights in our ordinance and in our own facilities.
What do you guys think? Do you want to try a demo with shielding? And see what that looks like? And maybe even put, if we can do demos next to the lights, if we can put a couple more in, so we can compare if they actually did get dimmer over time, might be interesting to see.
We tried
Yeah.
putting the filter on.
Yeah, it seems like a 2,700, 3,000 with and without a filter
Yeah.
would be the
Oh, interesting
range
to
of
see.
options.
Okay.
I do like the recommendation of kind of committing to the 3,000K and just trying to make it work rather than us acquiring the streetlights or putting up our own. I just, that's a huge level of effort. I don't know. We might be able to achieve what we want, just kind of patching it.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
That's what it seems like, you know.
This might be kind of pie in the sky, but I wonder if IDA could have a certification for utilities to encourage them to be good partners. for the-
That's a great
I
idea.
will mention it to our contact.
I think that's a good idea. Mhm.
All right, I will look into adding shields to our demo and either measuring the brightness on them as compared to their spec, or seeing if we can demo something new next to it.
Sounds great. Good.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll look to get the information about the retrofit versus replace.
Mhm.
And then you also wanted to know there's 6 lights out there that need to have new lights if we want to put those on hold
Mhm.
and just work on our decorative lights first. Are
Mhm.
you guys good with that?
I mean, it sounded like it was $6,000 for 8 of them. I mean, how long do we think, if we spend that $6,000, how long do we think that will last? Is that a-
So they've worked
Yeah.
on cities in Arizona that also have hot summers. So
Yeah.
they've been in for a number of years. We shouldn't have any maintenance on the lights. They should last for at least 10 years. And also this initial one is more expensive because we're only ordering a few.
Oh.
So, and they have to make our custom like template. So if we liked them, our next ones would be less expensive.
Kaylin?
Are you going to present on anything else?
No, that's it.
What's happening with the sustainability plan?
The sustainability plan. Oh, okay. Yeah. I've met with the project manager, Imogen, and we are working on putting together a list for the technical advisory committee for some sort of program management group that will maybe meet in a couple weeks to scope out the plan in more detail. So we've had 2 meetings so far, and I'll be meeting with her again on Monday. Yeah. So people should be hearing about some of that soon. And once I reach out to the people in the first meeting to kind of scope it out in more detail, we can also add to the list for the technical advisory committees. So it's underway.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, next up, we have Annie with the Parks, Recreation and Trails update.
Here we go. Hey, good evening. So I wanted to just present about an update to the Parks Master Plan, but also at the last meeting, we had a question about maintenance. So we'll touch a little bit about maintenance after that. So here we are, with the project timeline and where we're going, and what we've accomplished so far is actually quite a bit. To start, we had our work with our consultant to understand the demographics of Moab, have done some mapping exercises and some trend analysis. After that, they did an inventory assessment. So they had a landscape architect on contract who flew out here in April, and she went around to each of our sites and did her perspective of what the physical shape of those is, how much they meet our needs, met with staff and talked with them, and will be providing that review and conditions assessment to us for review next month. Also working on our systems need assessment. So they have reviewed what we currently have, which is a little lacking on goals and policies for parks. And then looking at a gap analysis of what we offer and what the community needs. And that's both physical infrastructure and also programming. And having us identify what level of service the city wants to provide, so we know if we're doing a good job or not. They're working to synthesize our community needs right now, and then starting to write a plan development. Oops. And then the next phase is coming up with priorities and strategies. So they'll complete their capital facilities plan. They'll come up with a lot of implementation ideas for us to consider, and then draft the draft plan. And that will all happen through October. And then at that point, we'll have a draft plan for review and approval that will go through our technical advisory committee, the planning commission, and ultimately for council. So what we've done for outreach so far, as we know, is this survey, which is completed. I'll talk a little bit about that in the next slide. We had our first in-person open house. We'll talk a little bit about that.
We conducted several stakeholder interviews. And then where we're at now is what we're called tabling and pop-up events. So the consultant needs a few months to put all of this into a draft plan, but we don't want the public to forget that we're doing this plan. So we're going to community events and with a few displays. And we did our first one last week at the farmer's market. And people walked by and were like, I took that survey, I took that survey. So it was a good chance for them. So we'll be continuing that throughout the summer to make sure they know we're still thinking about it. And then the last part of outreach will be coming back to council. So we held 5 stakeholder interviews, and these were people in the community that we know have either, we really wanted to sit down and hear more from, they have a vested interest or some other heightened level of interface with our parks. We had one with related agencies, so we sat down with the school district, the arena, the multicultural center, and the library, and thought about what their needs are and how they service the community and how we can partner potentially moving forward on delivering these services. We also had a sustainability and environmental group, and that was with USU, the Forest Service. Alexi was there. Had a really good discussion. What came to the forefront was not surprising, was water and trees in that discussion. We also know that there are certain groups out there that have very specific needs that they feel are imminent. So we had a concerned citizen group and the discussion there talked about the ball fields and pickleball courts. We had a really great trails group as well. And this was primarily a mapping activity. We had a lot of discussion, but we really sat down with markers and they told us where the problem spots were, where there were key connections and opportunities moving forward. So we'll pull that together for the master plan as well. And then we also talked with several of you guys here. So the community survey, it opened in late March and it went through April 30th. It was available in both Spanish and English. We had 833 respondents, which we thought was a really good response rate. And so we were still compiling the data, but virtually all of the respondents, 96%, felt that local parks, recreation opportunities were important, or if not essential to the quality of life. So people out there very much care about our parks. And also there was 30 pages of open-ended comments, which I've never seen before. So you know that they're very passionate. We also had our first public open house. There was about 30 attendees there. Primarily attendees were advocating for a very specific recreation activity. And again, that was the ball fields and pickleball. So any questions on the survey or on the master plan?
I guess I was curious, did you get any responses in Spanish?
4.
Oh, good. Okay,
Mhm.
well, better than nothing. Oh,
So the pop-up events, are you doing, is all you're doing is like the farmer's market?
Well, we'll go to any event that we know the community is going to be at. So if you have any
I was just wondering, like,
suggestions,
Tonight, like the baseball diamonds, there's tons of people over there. There's
that's a
park,
great, yeah, we can definitely make a baseball meeting.
You know, or some
Or baseball
of those
game.
groups.
Yeah.
The arts festival. Yeah.
Yes.
Huge. Do we have a way of knowing with the survey, like how many people were residents versus non?
Yeah, we have a lot of
Oh,
great data.
okay, cool.
So I'm like very excited. I like data, so. Any other questions on that?
Any other questions about the master plan?
Okay, so we'll touch, I know Kaylin had a specific question. Oh, sorry, the next steps. So we'll continue with the pop-up events throughout the summer. We're working on compiling the results and recommendations. The second open house will be in the first half of September. We'll let Labor Day kind of pass and then do it pretty quickly after that. And then we'll do the draft and review process. And then a quick update about parks maintenance. We had a very shortened year. We went from winter to summer very quickly. And so there was a very small time where we could turn the water on. It wasn't too cold at night to where it was very much needed in the parks. And that was coupled with a lot of irrigation issues. So in this photo here is our newest parks member, Brandon, who luckily had worked at the golf course for 20 years and knows irrigation. So we put him to work immediately in a ditch for a couple of weeks. So this photo is at Rotary, and we chased those lines and ended up replacing almost all of them in the valves and the whole system. So that was a delay of about 2 weeks to work on some of the other parks that were out there. We have a very dedicated but lean crew in parks. We have 5 people that do all of the mowing and watering and irrigation. So they were put to the test this spring. One of the highlights of this spring was also removing the restroom at Rotary Park.
We've gotten nothing but compliments. It's amazing how, oh, actually, there was a few people who were sad to see the murals go, but overall, just great comments and it looks so much better already. It's great. Also, some little things at Rotary, if you can remember that near the seating area where the basketball hoop is, there was a weird tile that was placed down there several years ago, and it was supposed to serve as both a basketball court and pickleball courts. They've kind of deteriorated over the years, and so we took them out and we power washed it, and within a day, we had rollerbladers, pickleball players, and basketball players on the site. So we didn't really understand what a hindrance that tile, even though we thought it was helping, was to actually be using the space. So it looks great. The community has done some temporary taping of pickleball courts out there if you've been by. And so it's also serving some great purposes. And some smaller things that we did at the park, if you could see the Rotary Club visited us on site and wanted a few improvements with the musical instruments. So we did some minor improvements. We put some scalloping along the edges. We replaced all of the wood chips in there and stained the wood and fixed up the instruments as well. The question about Lions and Lions, we also went in there too and replaced 4 different valves within there and 8 different sprinkler heads, hoping that fixed the problem because the grass was looking pretty bad. So we're hoping that that has fixed the grass. It looks much better, but it still has some weird circles. So we're hoping not to have to do surgery like we did at Rotary, but we'll keep an eye on it. And then also with the paint that is chipping on the pavilion, we are going to power wash that off. And instead of repainting it, because we think the elements out there are just too rough, the paint will continue to chip, but we'll do a clear coat on that. And then another fun project, and I'm not sure if you're aware, but we applied for a UO grant to do some pond beautification at Old City Park, and we were awarded that grant. And so a big thank you to Richard Laurie, who did a big assist on the grant writing. It was great. So we awarded that grant, and so it'll be sort of more of a mini grant. It's not a huge project, but we want to incorporate the pond into the park as more of a feature that you can enjoy instead of it sort of being caged off. So we're removing the fence, replacing it with more of aesthetic split rail fence. We'll be clearing out the vegetation and we'll also be sloping the edges of it so it's more gradual. So there's no concern there. Maybe putting benches and a little walking path around it. And then finally, we had some questions about the wrap tax, and I also wanted to show you our new logo. So Lisa and I worked on this logo. We wanted something that could identify wrap, but also be complementary to our new city logo. So this is what we came up with, and it'll be great to see this kind of pop up at events that we have sponsored and projects, and help to brand the wrap as we move forward and eventually go for a reauthorization of wrap. I know you all had received a recommendation from the wrap TAC to considering the allocation funding, and then there's a question about timeline. So that decision doesn't affect the current budget cycle as it is now, which is something that would need to be decided before we go back out for the second cycle of wrap, so we know how much funding is available. Any questions on that?
The stage. We got the stage is here,
The
right?
stage is here. It's at the arena.
Will it be being used for the free concert series? this
Yes,
summer?
that'll be the first time it is used.
Okay, cool.
Mhm.
Perfect.
And then it's going to be turned around the next day and used at the 4th of July celebration.
Oh, nice.
Questions for Annie? Great. So I think we'll talk about the wrap tax allocation during strategic plan in January. And just so you know, the Parks Master Plan is going to kind of give us more idea of what that other money is going to be used for in terms of replacement and facility management of the park. So once that plan is done, we're going to get a better idea of what all we can use that money for and what prioritize what that is. I know you are working on some other things this year, like the Swanee Park playground. that
Well,
kind-
that was identified in the budget as a potential for wrap
Okay,
tax. So it's a placeholder in the budget for a project.
Okay,
Can I ask one quick question about Old City Park?
Yes.
So you said the fencing would be replaced with split rail. So kind of more, with relatively big openings, I take it, or
Yes.
So the only thing that occurred to me that I haven't had a chance to ask you is, at some point we decided to allow off-leash dogs on the south side, I think, of Old City Park. And being someone who both loves dogs and children and the other small critters in the pond, I was thinking, oh, there might all of a sudden be some great interest, because dogs like water, some of them, of dogs in getting in the pond with the baby ducks and the fish. And that might get interesting. So I just, anyway, something to think about if you guys haven't yet.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Great comment.
Anything else for Andy? All right, more to come. Thank you. Next up, we have Ben to talk about our strategic plan that we met about in January. And now we are going to get an idea of what we talked about in January, a reminder of what we agreed to.
Yeah, this is a reminder, so it's not available for adoption yet, just to kind of give you an idea of where we're at for with the progress on this. So you I emailed out to City Council all of the strategic plan objectives, pillars, objectives, and goals that have been developed as part of the strategic planning process. And this evening is simply just to provide an update to that. So essentially that spreadsheet contained all of the content that will be contained within the strategic plan itself. It's just not really in a presentation format that's pretty. It's not nice to the public. So that's what that will be coming, and I'll be showing you a part of that product this evening. Anytime we talk about the strategic plan, I think it's important that we review terminology. The definitions of what we're talking about. I think it's very important, just so that as a quick reminder. So a pillar, these are some of the key focus areas. And for this year, we simply used the pillars that were identified in the visioning process that correlated very well with our strategic planning process. So this was simply confirmed in that session in January. And the timeframes that are the last bullet point on each thing, that's an approximate. That's the approximate duration. Could extend much longer than that, or we could change them next year. So a pillar is something that would typically endure maybe for about a 5-year period before being adjusted. A goal is how you build up to those pillars. So each goal that we set as an organization is associated with one of the pillars. So we have 43 goals in total. These were developed through the strategic planning session in January. These are broader and more long-term and will typically last about 2 to 3 years, again, very generally. The objectives are what we as staff have done following the strategic planning session, and basically said, how do we accomplish these goals that we set? In this case, we developed 149 objectives. So these are short-term measurable actions that define and support each one of these goals. So an objective is essentially, a lot of people know what the term a SMART goal is. Really what we're calling these is SMART objectives. So it's specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time constrained. And these will last, the goal, I use the word goal. The idea is that these last 1 year. So it's the budget cycle. So these are the things that we want to accomplish to move forward those goals, and in that 1 year period. I also left on there, I put on there a task, and this is essentially a subset or a buildup of an objective. And this is essentially created, if there's like the department head is the owner of the objective, they would build up the tasks. Tasks are just for organization so that we know and we're keeping track with our deadlines. The pillars are very important to talk about. They're reminded here just as a kind of refresher. Affordability and equity is one, community fabric and well-being, environmental stewardship, workforce and housing, leadership and decision-making, tourism trajectory, and economic diversification. We did add a 7th pillar to this, something that we found was perhaps missing as we considered, that wasn't considered as part of the vision process, and that's infrastructure projects. And so it will fall under this strategic plan as well. So next I wanted to talk about the tool and why I don't have a product to present. So essentially we have, like I said, we have a spreadsheet at this point, and we are using a tool called ClearGov. This is how we built the budget last year. So it's a tool that we're already using, and they are building a new tool as part of their product offerings, and they're calling it ClearGov Clear Plans, which is essentially just a strategic planning tool. I demoed it shortly after our strategic planning session, got really excited because it fits really well with exactly how we are building our strategic plan. And so essentially that put me in kind of a holding pattern on moving forward with the development, because they're developing this product as we go. So they released what I'm going to show you this evening that was released on May 9th, so just a couple weeks ago. And so I've plugged in all of our strategic planning pillars and objectives and tasks into that. And so I'll be going through the back end of that shortly. It really does three things very well. So it allows for real-time access to strategic initiatives. So as you may remember, the current year strategic plan is it's a nice tool. It's embedded in our website, but it requires a lot of update. I'm meeting with each of the department heads and essentially updating each thing as we go. There's, it's kind of cumbersome to manage. This should be much easier. It allows for collaboration. So the department head can actually go in and make real-time updates. They get email reminders if a deadline has passed, or, if there's you can set the variable frequency to allow this self-reporting mechanism. And then the final is that it's publicized. So there's a publication that can be embedded on our website that allows, again, just real-time access to this strategic plan. So with that, I wanted to just kind of scroll through and let you see and show the, I don't know how to change screens on Zoom. Interesting.
Changed a minute ago and then it bounced back.
Did it?
Yeah.
I will start this over. Okay, so this is the admin side of the tool. So this is not what the public will see or what we will see when we want to go in and look at it. This is how we're managing it in the back end as department heads and as we kind of just build it up. So we put a nice image for each of them to represent each of the pillars. And there's a dashboard here. And it will show the progress. And essentially, this is something that's very familiar. Again, this tool felt very comfortable because it's very similar to what I had built and is currently embedded for the current year. You have tasks that are completed, on track, minor or major disruption, or not started, or it's a future task. So again, this is all very familiar. It felt very comfortable for us to move forward with this. The chart there will be kind of as we're doing these things, it will be updated and we'll be able to see, what percentage of our goals are accomplished over time. I wanted to just hop in to one of these. Most of them have no progress, but it does show the total number of goals within each pillar. There were two items I just wanted to show how it displays overall progress. And so I updated two specifically. If we open workforce and housing here, one of them that I wanted to show was the Walnut Lane project. So under here are the goals. And one of the objectives within the goal was to select a qualified developer, which we have done at this point, and we're in the negotiation process with the pre-development agreement. So that objective is complete, and that's why within that workforce and housing pillar, it showed a percentage of completion because one of the objectives was completed. I did want to, at this point, if it doesn't switch over, I will just stop sharing. So kind of what are the next steps for the implementation? So I would like to, this tool will be available for publishing, so available to the public and viewable on July 5th. And so I would recommend then we consider for adoption the strategic plan. So I'm going to recommend adoption by resolution. And we consider that on July 11th as a city council. So we'll have it all together and kind of in a pretty format for the next fiscal year. Fiscal year would have already started at that point, so it's not ideal, but we're also working with a tool that's kind of being developed as we're using it. And yeah, that's my presentation. So any questions about the strategic plan?
Questions for Ben? Kaylin?
No.
No?
Thank you so much.
All right, thanks, Ben. More to come on this at our next meeting, so. Moving on, consent agenda, we have two items, 5.1, approval of the May 9th regular meeting minutes, and 5.2, the approval of the bills against the city of Moab in the amount of $537,760.88. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Motion made by Kalen, second? Second by Luke. Discussion, Kalen?
Nope.
Luke? Anybody else? I'll call for the vote. All in,
I'm going to abstain because I wasn't at the meeting.
okay. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? One abstention. Yeah. All right, motion passes 4-0. All right, do we have Chuck in the vicinity?
He was
Yes.
wandering along.
All right. We have an update where there's no action to be taken on this item. It says an update on the design of the Cane Creek Boulevard reconstruction project. And as you know, we had a public open house a couple of weeks ago that was well attended. And we just want to clarify too, that this project was funded by Community Impact Board. And that's all the money can be used for. I think some of the comments where, don't spend it on this, spend it on something else that doesn't pertain to this project. But just so for the public to know, this $8 million is specific for Cane Creek Boulevard and nothing else. And so, and then we will be going down to Monticello on June 1st. That's when the CIB board meets again to basically confirm the money, which was a pretty much 50-50 split grant and low interest loan. So we're ready for you, Chuck. And so what we want from you guys is Chuck's going to just kind of present what he learned, what the public learned, and then we need you guys to give him some direction because we really want to go to CIB on June 1st and say, we're ready to go. Oops.
Wasn't me.
I know. All right. Okay. So anyway, we need to move forward with this project because CIB wanted shovel-ready projects. We feel like we're very close. And so it's really important for Chuck to get your feedback today so he can move on with his process so we can get this project going here in October when we get the money. Right?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We're trying to get to construction plans bid and available in October, November at the latest, which is what my belief is from watching the Community Impact Board, an acceptable time frame for them to do so because they want to get the money spent. So we've really been working to engage people and get their feedback both from council members as well as from the public, as well as from the stakeholders there. And I think we've done a good job of that. And the design, and we have it ready to show if you'd like to see it on the screen, have any questions. But one of the things that we've been I like to go philosophical for a moment. One of the things that we've been talking about with councils for the last two councils has been this concept of a complete streets program. And a complete streets is a nationwide, I don't want to call it a movement, but it's definitely directionally heading that way for a lot of communities to make our streets more than just places for cars and trucks. Places that will allow for bicyclists, will allow for pedestrians, allow for a place to be an enjoyable place to be if you can, sometimes with things like parklets or benches. So it's not just zoom through. And when we scope this, and I think council has this opportunity when you got the CIB funding for us to do so correctly on this Cane Creek Boulevard project. So that's what we've been trying to keep with us the whole time is complete streets approach. That doesn't mean you have to have landscape mediums in the middle. No. But the thing that those medians do is they are traffic calming devices. You know, if we didn't have tree one on them and we had raised medians, those would serve as traffic calming devices, still let traffic get by. And putting the trees on them was because we had sufficient funds for this project to do so, right? And we'll have to irrigate them and we'll have to maintain them. And those are known, you know, and I think we've been upfront about that all consistently. But providing shade is, I believe, been one of council's discussion topics over the years for those of you from the past council. So this is an opportunity to do so because we have the funding that allows us to do that, create a nicer space, create a slower space, provide opportunities for multimodal activities. And so the reason we wanted to, and we've got that design, I think I can tell you that we have maximized the number of landscape medians that we could put on this road and still be safe. I mean, we still have to have safety parameters even on complete streets for vehicles and vehicle pedestrian interaction, et cetera. So we've kept them there and maximized them based on our understanding of what council wanted to do because we had the funding to do so. And as a quick reminder, we're also going to do sewer, water, and storm drain improvements on this project. So the philosophical part of it is, does council want to embrace complete streets? We've tried to, that's what my understanding was, is that you wanted to do that. And so we have, and that'd be my recommendation too, by the way, that this is an opportunity to do so. And so we've got the features in there that will allow that. And the reason I wanted to bring that up is, as you know, and I think every council member, I believe, was at the public open house 2-3 weeks ago over at the Episcopal Church. And we had a good turnout, almost close to 50 people. And part of the responses I wanted to share with you is, you know, maybe close to half of them said, oh, don't spend money on landscape medians because they'll be too much to maintain. And it will slow the traffic down too much. Well, that's true. There will be more maintenance. I mean, we've been upfront with you about that in the dispersed parking, the downtown dispersed parking. There's more maintenance if we have more vegetation, and that'll be one of the challenges to come up with funding for that. But it's, you know, if we build it, we must maintain it. You heard me say that before, but if that's the type of future we want with our streets, complete streets, I think we'll have to find a way to fund that maintenance. Or not. I mean, I'm just being upfront with you. You can make the decision. I'm just saying we'll have to do that if we want those to grow, which is the whole point of planning them. And then the comments weren't really, and I appreciated the mayor's comments at the opening about it. We get this a lot of times on projects where we'll have public meetings and they'll say, oh, you're doing too much. Do some here and then go over there and spend money. Well, this is one of those cases where we can't use this CIB money for 100 East. Let's just say it. We all know 100 East needs to be reconstructed, and so do the utilities underneath there. And with Cane Creek Boulevard being addressed, I think it becomes one of our next staff's priorities to find ways to help us get that one fixed. But sometimes the public doesn't understand that we have dedicated funds for dedicated projects. I mean, we hear it a lot in our public outreach and the downtown dispersed parking. We had some of the same comments. Don't put so much of the amenities there, go spend some money someplace else. Well, as you know, we had to spend money on the downtown for the dispersed parking. And while we were doing it and tearing everything up, the direction from council was, let's go make it some amenities there to make downtown a better place to be. And I think that's the goal with Cane Creek Boulevard too, with the landscape medians. So with that kind of introduction and overview, I'd be happy to take some answer questions if you have them, or take direction if you have that as well, as if you want to, and if you want to see the design that we've got again, I'd be happy to, Mark, we'll pull it up. Would you like to see
Sure,
that?
put it up.
Okay, let's do that. So this is, we'll start at the, as a reminder, the project goes from Main Street near the McDonald's almost to 500 West, so almost the full length of Cane Creek Boulevard. And if you start looking up there at the intersection, you see that we have bike lane, a dedicated bike lane on the eastbound traffic. And then as you start coming northbound, if you will, we're first landscape median right there. I think one of the things I'd mention is that we took some feedback from council and from the public as well. And so we have opportunities where if we put the trees in, we don't necessarily have to put in grasses and brush on the islands. We can cover that with, you know, if there's budget with like stamped concrete or something that might look nice, but would keep the weed problem down that we have sometimes. And but the trees could still be there. So right there, Mark, if you'll blow up over there by the dimensions. Yeah. So you can see that as we look at this, and I'll start at the top, that's a 6-foot sidewalk, a 6-foot bike lane, a 12-foot travel lane, a 12-foot wide median, 12-foot travel lane, 6-foot bike lane, and then an 8-foot park strip. And you'll see as we go through it, we have places for parklets and benches. And I think we have budgeted even one drinking water station for near the crosswalk that gets so much use up by the Episcopal Church. And then we go to a 10-foot shared use path. And the shared use path provides an opportunity for pedestrians and bicyclists, much like the on 100 West. We have what I call the recreational users. And I continually go down there to look and see if that's changing, but it still seems to be what happens is people who have got the little trailers with their dogs or their kids, or even without them, they'll use the shared use path for riding the bikes. The people who seem to be commuter bicyclists, they like to be out in the street on the bike lanes because they want to go fast, and the bike lanes still give them protection. Same concept here is we have the bike lanes in the street and the shared use path as we can off. You'll see that we've also, as you keep moving, Mark up, there's a crosswalk to be installed. That's Birch, I believe. So we'll install a crosswalk there with a, you know, new everything ADA compliant. This has a pedestrian refuge in the middle, which enhances pedestrian safety even more so. And this has a rectangular rapid fire beacon pedestrian actuated flashing system to stop traffic. Then as we keep moving, you see now we run out of room for landscaping because there are various right-of-way widths as well as encroachments into the right-of-way. So, but what we did do is we put a lot of new trees, those greens is new trees on the edges of the right-of-way or by the sidewalk. So we lost them in the landscape median because there's no room for the median because we're getting ready for a turning lane. And then this is another crosswalk. This is the main crosswalk. We're moving it a little bit to the south and east because it aligns better with, people won't have to cross the church parking lot the way they do currently. And this would allow for a trail to go down to the new pedestrian bridge in Pack Creek that'll hopefully we're near 100% complete. We're just waiting for NRCS approval that project could go out to bid in the near future. So this allows that connectivity to be, and that'll be an ADA compliant trail as well to get to that bridge. As you keep moving. Yep. And so here let's look at the dimensions there, Mark. Yeah. So here you can see that we've transitioned going from top to bottom again. to a 10-foot shared use path, 6-foot bike lane, 12-foot travel lane, 12-foot continuous left turn lane, 12-foot travel lane, 6-foot bike lane, and some parking on the lower end there, and then a 10-foot shared use path. Again, it's because of fluctuations in right of way that we end up with a few different sections there, but we tried to keep the same theme of complete streets throughout, and I believe we've accomplished that. And we've got some bump outs right there by the intersection. You see that serves to help protect those people getting out of their cars as well as slow traffic down.
Chuck, what's that little beacon? I mean, the little icon, that black one. Is that a light or is that something else?
Yeah. It's a light.
Okay, thanks.
Street light. Yep. All of those are, good point. I was looking to see if we had the flashing beacons symbol on there, but the crosswalk. Yeah, they're not shown right now. So those are street lights. Okay. Keep going around the curve. We've modified the Baptist church right there, if you'll stop, Mark. It is kind of a free for all because there's no curb, gutter, or sidewalk right up there by the Baptist church. And we've worked with the pastor to come up with something that they'll be able to have their parking on site, but we were able to also come up with a design that puts some on-street parking there it's not dedicated to the church like all of our public parking. But if it's available on Sunday morning and funeral days, there's parking too in the streets, and there's also parking for other purposes anyone else wants to use it. And then I guess I forgot to mention this time that all the sycamores on the that are out there now on the west side of the street, those would stay unless they're diseased. We'll have someone look at it, an arborist look at them to see if this is an opportunity to get rid of any diseased ones that may be dangerous and about ready to collapse. But I'm an amateur arborist and I don't see many out there, if you will. But we're keeping all those, but that sidewalk that goes up and down, we know that that's bad. This is our opportunity to get rid of that sidewalk, and we're going to place the sidewalk on the street side of those trees, as opposed to now it's on the land side of the trees, the private property side. And we think that that'll be a sufficient distance away. And actually, truthfully, one reason those sidewalks buckles is because those big lawns that are irrigated, the tree roots are seeking out that water, and then it gets underneath the sidewalk and buckles it. So we're going to avoid that scenario with this design. You see, we've got some parklets with benches, some place for a public art space. Again, the public art wouldn't be obtained with the construction project, but Annie has her programs for that. But this would, we dedicate space for it in a place.
Chuck, in this context, what does parklet mean, or what's the definition?
It just means it's a place where that's in the right of way, that's not sidewalk or bike lane. It's a place where it can be open and flat, and we can put a bench, we can put public art.
So it may be concrete or it may be vegetated, don't really.
We're not down to final design yet on that.
Yeah.
I think our intent from talking to the landscape architect in our team is that it would be a vegetated zone. Like if we keep it to that small, it would be vegetated, and budget permitting and irrigation permitting, we might have some forbs and things like that in that space.
Okay, thanks.
Potentially a water station like we've got designed into the downtown dispersed parking, where we're adding a public water station, which I think is a good thing. Is that the end of it, Mark? Oh, a little bit more, yeah. And so we go around the curve. We feel good about sight distance with those landscape medians. We did some analysis to make sure that we weren't gonna hinder anyone's vision. And there's not, because that's why we couldn't put a crosswalk in there though, too. We'd had some conversations about, could we put another crosswalk there at that location, but that won't work. But we still can use the medians. Did you just shift? Yeah, fast. So now the curve is on the right, where we just changed views, and we're still moving now towards 500 West. Up there by, see driveway, sorry, Mark, yeah, 9 and 10. That's where the Blue Bison development, if it is actually built, that's where their driveways would come out onto that location there. And we've got their plans, which is how we know where that'll be. And then keep moving to the left. And you can see one of the things there, the UDOT yard, marked driveway 3. Yeah, so we want to align that driveway with Mountain View, because it makes for a much safer intersection for everyone. And UDOT is amenable to that. They tell us, by the way, that that's going to go up for sale in the near future, and whether or not someone wants to use it for a yard again, or someone wants to make a development, I don't know. But we want that alignment to be lined up. This is our opportunity to get that alignment with Mountain View for whatever happens out there. If anything, but they tell me that they're in process of doing that. And again, we have a crosswalk just there to the left of Mountain View. And then as you go to keep moving a little bit more. Yeah, right there. That's the water loadout. So there's a water. Right now you have to, people who need to use fresh water come into the road yard and load out. And you can see right there is an example of where the water is spilling, because it's not such a great place to do it, but also it gets semi-tractor trailers of water in our road yard competing with all the road yard activities, and the public goes in there too to get permits and such. So this has been a long wanted goal to achieve, and this is the opportunity to do that. We'll put in a water fill station there between the road yard and the curb line. It'll be key carded. They make them prefab, and then this loadout will have curb. You see there, Mark, where the dimensions are. There's that 12 foot, then right there between the 12 and the 5, that'll be like a 6-inch or 9-inch tall curb, just to protect the drivers from anyone going sideways off the road. It'll also define that space for the drivers better. And yet it still keeps the flow of traffic for the bicycle and the public moving along, and kind of gets those. And then when they come out, they'll have to go up to 500 West and turn. There's not going to be able to make a U-turn out of there. But most of the semi-tractor trailers are going out to the BLM or the Park Service anywhere. So anyway, so they're heading north of town. So I don't see that as an issue.
I have a silly question about that. Obviously very practical and good idea. Is there some kind of, is the idea that area and that pullout is only for water loading, because you've seen some of our residents and visitors, and you could get impatient, say, oh, I'm going to go around everybody to the right. So is there usually some kind of signage or something that
we're going to have some
kind
signage there? Definitely signage that's, water, authorized water loadout only, or something along those lines. Do not enter, things like that. We haven't gotten that far because council hasn't said make this happen yet, but if you do, we will make sure that happens. I mean, this design by that.
Are there ever any moments where there's kind of like a bit of a backup of individuals waiting for water that it might kind of feed into traffic?
So this is to scale, and we put in the vehicle that's at the loadout right now is a 4,000 gallon water tanker, which is pretty common. And then that other vehicle to the right is actually a semi-tractor trailer. So in talking to Levi and Obi over the years, they're saying that typically the most they ever get is 2 at a time. And Mark, if you'll scroll back to the right, please. Keep going. Yeah, they can legally park in the bicycle lane on the other side over there. If they were to drive through and there was a problem, they can park in there, and there's room to do that. But but talking to the road yard folks, like never more than 2 at a time. So that's why we designed for 2. Okay. And then if you keep going, and then this is near the end of project. So what we did there is was a good suggestion is to take a bicycle exit ramp because we lose width for the bike lane, and that's a wide shared use path. So the bicyclists, we have the Sharrow there, which means it's a share of the road. Bikes and cars, they have a choice. They can, if they're the commuter bicyclists, they want to keep going on the road, they can. If they're more the recreational bicyclists, and they don't feel comfortable in the road with no bike lanes, they can get up and get on the shared use path. And then end of project ties into I think it was 2011, showing my age. Project that was a federally funded for local projects. That's where that project ended, right there, just east of 500 West, and then 500 West was part of that project. So those are the project limits from Main Street to there, and we've taken care of throughout the project, able to address bicycle traffic, pedestrian traffic, and then we've maximized the opportunities for traffic calming and for green infrastructure. I forgot to mention, we have bioswales in there, which there's some state standards for low impact development, which is part of what this is. And the bioswales will be used to treat the street drainage it'll filter it from any oils and contaminants are there before it percolates down, because it's very shallow groundwater, because we're so in a large part of this project. Be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Chuck?
Don't necessarily have any questions. I'm completely in support of the complete streets approach. And although I can understand people's kind of concern about traffic getting slowed down too much, that's also kind of the point. It's also a reminder that they're driving alongside residential neighborhoods, and there's a lot of kids, people with disabilities, elderly people that live in that area. And particularly since we're making access to that bridge a little bit easier and more accessible, we're promoting more kind of pedestrian traffic to go across the street and over the distance of the road that we're going to be improving. I did some quick math, like I know the speed limit's 30 right now. A lot of people kind of blaze through there. So if they're going 35, even if we slow it down to 25 miles an hour, we're delaying people's travel by like maybe 40 seconds. And so to me, like the safety and kind of the respect for the neighborhood outweighs a 40-second inconvenience. So I really appreciate all of the work that's been done for this and for all of the feedback that we've received from the community about this. But I think it looks great.
So I will echo that and expand on it a little bit. As you're well aware, we've engaged in transportation planning at a variety of scales over the last few years. And the last one is the Unified Transportation Plan, which were our local streets. And that identified as a top level goal to make our streets safer and to have complete streets. And one of the, as I understand it, one of the biggest determinants of the severity of crashes is the speed of the vehicles. So the complete streets are supportive of that. Our police have limited capacity and they, as I understand it, do traffic enforcement when they have the time. There might be 2 officers on duty, neither of which are available to ticket people on Cane Creek. Complete Streets and is on duty 24/7, encouraging people to drive the speed limit and reduce the possibility and severity of crashes, especially if those involve pedestrians or bicyclists. So I'm wholeheartedly in support of it. I feel like there's already been quite a bit of compromising for vehicles. When I look at this at the high level, there's actually not that much median. But I think it'll do its job. One critique that I hear is that we shouldn't be planting trees because of our water, but in my mind, our urban forests are part of what we are conserving water for. It adds to the livability of the and beauty of our community. One thing that's been reported repeatedly in the popular press recently is the discrepancy between tree cover in different income neighborhoods and cities, and the effects of that on summertime temperatures, especially nighttime temperatures when ideally it will cool down and people have a chance to recover. This street fronts on a number of low income housing facilities. And so I feel like this is a place where we could just continue to have a lot of bare asphalt, or we can reduce that inequity by planting more trees and making it more comparable in tree cover to our other neighborhoods that have smaller streets. So I'm wholeheartedly in support and really appreciate all the design team's work on this and trying to accommodate all the different values, sometimes complementary, sometimes competing. One comment that was made a couple of times I saw was concerns that about using Mountain View as a workaround for this. I don't see that. I noticed it in the comments. I don't see that happening, but this has been a repeated comment that we've received for some of those streets. And so even though it's outside the scope of this project, I'd encourage staff to continue to look at strategic interventions in the adjacent neighborhood.
Yeah, and to reply to that, I think that some of the cut through traffic that goes through Mountain View neighborhood now is to avoid the terrible condition that Cane Creek Boulevard is in.
For sure.
And even when it's going to be posted at 25, which is what we're going to design it for, posted as, I think most people who know, maybe not tourists, but others would know that I can drive new pavement at 25, or I can get down to 25 and get bumped all around in Mountain View. And I'm not proud of the fact that they're getting bumped around, but that's the reality of those roads. So I understand, and we'll still continue to look at Mountain View.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to you guys for all the work you've done. We've been talking about this road for a long, long time. And I want to thank Joette for thinking about going to the CIB. I think that was a really good move, because otherwise this would have been bumped back who knows how many more years. I appreciate the folks that live in Mountain View and their concerns about their neighborhoods. Like Kaylin, I just would encourage you guys to just keep an eye on that and make sure that we address their concerns, that we're not just sacrificing their neighborhood while the construction happens. And we've also, as a council, been hearing about complete streets for quite a few years. And this seems to be what my vision of that was. So, and I agree completely with the tree comments. I think that we heard, don't put those in for all the reasons that we heard. Don't put so many decorations in, and I don't know when Cane Creek Boulevard was built, but it was just a slab of asphalt. And so we have a chance to make it not just flat asphalt anymore and make it fit with the neighborhood that kind of grew up around it. So thank you.
Ronnie.
Thanks, Chuck. I just wanted to double check. I think in one of the early iterations, we had one rapid flashing beacon. So it looks like now there's one at Birch and there's one by the St. Francis Church. I just wanted to check, does the Mountain View crossing have one or not?
There are 3 crosswalks under this design.
Yeah.
And we have the beacons at all 3 crosswalks.
Okay.
And we'll bid them that way unless we hear differently.
Okay, yeah, so I've definitely seen them like in commercial districts in different parts of the country. And they seem great. One of the questions related to, sometimes we get this with the other flashing signs, is by Mountain View, I guess you have the home on the corner and then you have those apartments. Do you hear from other communities when they use them? Is there ever any kind of shielding asked for or something? I don't know if the flashing actually makes it into people's, living rooms or anything. That would be the only thing I would think. Is
You
there a-
know,
Yeah,
from my colleagues,
Yeah.
the consultant side,
Yeah.
I haven't heard that as an issue. We've talked
Yeah.
about it. And the beacons only flash when someone's crossing
Right.
the street.
right. I just
So,
know they're pretty bright, which can be great for the driver. I just didn't know, like if, like our streetlights, if there's a shield that's ever offered.
I'll look more into
Okay.
that, but as I've talked
Yeah.
to my colleagues,
Yeah.
they've said that's not, and it, because it's such a short duration
Right.
and there's less traffic at night probably than there would be during the day.
Okay.
But I'll
just
look into that
curious.
shielding
Yeah.
question. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and then only because people always ask us about updates. I don't think anything has changed, but I think there was somebody who asked on this, I'm not just about the Episcopal Bridge, but the other bridge at Cross Creek Trails, and it's not part of this project, but I didn't know if we had any updates on that one. Probably not.
On
but-
which one?
Oh, the bridge over by Cross Creek Trails, I think. Some people, when they think of Cane Creek, yeah,
Blue bicycle.
yeah.
It's not the Episcopal Bridge we're talking about
No.
behind the.
No, it's the one down by the liquor store.
Oh, it's in good shape, plus I checked.
Yeah, it's in
Okay.
pretty good shape.
Oh,
Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was, when we started these meetings, we talked about, okay, at some point, there'll be a time for council to discuss, as we have sometimes alluded to, but we haven't, I think, made a final decision. But at some point in this process, it would be time for council to discuss the speed limit on this road, because we have in the past had some discussions about, are we ready or interested to take the whole town to 20 miles per hour? Because we had talked about that numerous times. So I didn't know if now is the time to ask that question or,
so we chose the design speed of 25 miles per hour because it's a design speed for this collector road.
right,
And we can post it at 25, or if council comes back and says, no, you want it at 20 later on when you have the discussion, you can do that. You can post it lesser. And that's typically how it goes in either you don't do design speeds, you don't post them higher than what the design speed is. You either
Right.
posted it what the design speed is or a little bit lower. So if you were asking me, the answer is to your question is we can take direction on that later. You don't have to decide that today unless you guys want to decide that.
okay, well, I mean, we've had past discussions and I think it was raised like that's a discussion for council. So I guess it's a question I'm asking colleagues because I'm perfectly happy to have that discussion now. I mean, I have,
Well, I think we should,
Yeah.
that's a bigger discussion than this Cane Creek project. So I
Right.
prefer that we just focus on Cane Creek. And then we can have a discussion on 20 miles an hour throughout the town. Because right now that's what it is unless otherwise posted. So it'd be simple enough to just not post it. And then it would automatically be 20. But I think Ronnie, if you want us to talk about speed limit in town, let's have that as a different discussion.
yeah, not in town, but for this street. For this stretch, because when we discussed the design before, there was some discussion about, that's a council decision. So the way we're going about it, we're saying it's going to be 25, it's going to be 25. So I had the impression from past discussions that if we had interest in it being 20, we were supposed to bring that up in this process. So I'm just bringing it up.
Okay.
And then maybe you can just answer, Chuck. I had some people ask me and I thought, I should ask an engineer this because I have my own theories, but I'm sure it's based on some studies. I've had a few people ask me, well, why is it that a median is supposed to calm or slow down traffic? And I thought, well, I have my own theories, but I should just ask. They're probably things that studies say. So, if somebody asks you, what do you tend to?
So it's called
Yeah.
side friction.
Okay.
It's, it's like the wide open streets that we have here,
Yeah.
with the 60 feet of paving and that, there's very little side friction. So the perception is I can drive,
Uh-huh.
and nothing's really, that's dangerous. But as you bring in curbs, which is
Yeah.
what a landscape medium really is, it's curb high or guardrail on a road, even a high speed road, people will tend to go slower when there's that. And part of it's just it's a function of our vision.
Okay.
When it's wide open, our peripheral vision's going out. But when we got closer in, your peripheral vision stays there, which says, oh, I've got to be careful because I don't have this room to move.
Okay, thanks. That probably just helps some people because, okay, thanks. Those were my questions.
Thanks, Ronnie.
All right.
Uh-oh. It was going
Where
so
should we
good.
start? No, no, I think it's a great project. The only part that I am concerned about is the water fill station. And trucks filling up with water there. And you said it's very few trucks that are going south, but those trucks that are going south, which there will be, it's not going to, 100%. There's no place for them to turn around. And if they do turn around, they have to go down to Williams Way, up Williams Way past the hospital, and then they're hitting Main Street on one of those narrow streets, either the curve on, what is that, First South, where it has a long curve, or they're turning right and then making a quick left on Center Street, which is super narrow, in these big trucks. Or if they decide to continue going down Fifth West, they're going past the elementary school to access Main Street. And I just, because that's the nearest place, right? They go down
400 north.
400 north, and then they hit Fifth and go up Fifth past the elementary school.
They
Is that right?
generally don't though, Jason. They,
But if they are going south,
even if they go south, most of them go up Fifth West to the signal and turn back and go south, just because of the.
yeah, so that's what I'm saying, that
it
it would need to be defined, because the last thing we want is to have big, heavy trucks full of water, in these residential kind of areas, or these or these high visitation areas near Main Street, making left-hand turn, right-hand turns at Zach's, that intersection there to go south. It should be like a way to make it mandatory that they're going all the way down to Denny's and then turning right, so that they're not going through.
So we can certainly do that with signage, and we can certainly do that. So you have to have a customer account,
Right.
to access into these water. And I could see that that's even a requirement of getting an account, is that if you've got the large trucks, you're going to go out 500 west to the highway and either turn left or right.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's, if that's like,
That's one way to control it. If they follow the rules or not, I don't know, but there's ways to make them.
right. I just don't want to see these big trucks going through these
Right.
compact neighborhoods,
No.
because they can't turn around there. Or if it would be better to design it so that you even just design it so the filling stations is within the yard itself, so that trucks can turn around, and then once they come out, they can go left or right from there.
Couldn't they turn in and then turn around, turn into the first driveway?
If we open that driveway up, the road yard leaves that driveway locked
Oh, okay.
all the time, unless there's a certain reason. But again, part of this was to get those trucks out of the road yard.
Right.
Because we have equipment in there, we have our workers in there on the ground, and we have the public coming in there too. I think that's not, I share your concern about that, but I think because this is all account based, we have an agreement that trucks must go out 500 west and then make their choices.
Okay.
Left or
I
right.
just want to make sure that they're not going through those.
And they're not gonna risk losing their licensure by being. Well, no, even their individual CDLs, they're not gonna risk those by being, flagrant of the rules. If that's the rule that they
That's
take that longer risk, they are not gonna risk losing their certifications.
right, by not complying with the requirements of the account.
They're not,
Yeah.
that's,
Well, you can't take someone's CDL because they drove through a neighborhood unless it's a law,
but their employers can.
they can't take their CDL, they can fire them, but they can,
Yeah.
they're not gonna can't take away their commercial driver's.
Well, if they have enough violations, they can lose them.
So
so-
anyway, but anyway, that's my concern, is where those trucks can turn around and the route that they take to start going south.
Okay.
Kaylin, did you have a comment?
You made it.
Okay.
But if there was a street coming up through that parcel to the south, they could drive through Mountain View.
Well,
Boy, you know how to win friends and influence people. don't you?
Make it 35.
Anything else, Jason?
No, that was it. But thank you. I think this looks really good. This is great.
I had a quick question about the crosswalks. Are those like automatically activated or is it like user
They're
activated?
pedestrian, they're activated by the pedestrian who wants to do the crossing.
Okay,
And we'll have a pedestrian refuge in the middle. Those islands are designed there. Whether or not we'll put a activation in there is going to be a budget function.
Mhm.
So you can do it two ways. You can activate from one side and you get all the way across the street, hopefully. Or you get to the middle and say, somebody's not paying attention, so I'm going to stop and look. And then hopefully we'll have budget to put another actuator there, which will make sure that the lights are on for that last leg getting across. If we don't have them in the middle, we'll time them for what should be enough to get across.
all right. So that user activation can sort of be like a mitigation for like the concern that Ronnie had expressed as being a possibility. Because if people, ideally people are driving with their headlights on at night, and if you
Yeah.
don't see any headlights coming, like there really isn't necessarily the need to turn on the warning lights.
That's right.
All right, Chuck, I think you got your marching orders. Let's go.
We're gonna proceed forward with all haste
Great,
so we can get to plans.
good.
All right,
Looking forward to it.
great. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have item 6.2, consideration of award of a 5-year contract with Motorola Solutions for body camera, dash camera, and command central software. Scott, you're going to talk to us about this briefly? Seems like kind of something that's needed.
Absolutely. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So as part of the record management upgrade and CAD upgrade, we're looking at innovative ways to have this all be one solution instead of piecemealed, piece by piece. Right now, our current body cameras are Axon. The body cameras generally last 10 to 12 hours. Our battery life is down to about 2.5 hours. So end of life on our current body cameras has come. So we're making do with what we have, but we need to enter into a new contract. We recently were looking at, or the administration was looking at some Fleet 3 cameras. They were taking a very long time to manufacture and get to us. But this is actually a benefit for us because by going with our new CAD and RMS system, Spillman, Motorola also has a body camera that integrates with our current software that we're going to. Some of those features will include with Motorola auto tagging. So right now with Axon, officers have to go in and manually enter case numbers on every single video they touch, and then they have to create a case file for it. The Motorola WatchGuard software mitigates this. So it automatically connects with the CAD system and automatically tags every incident or case number onto that video for that user or for that officer. So this the WatchGuard program integrates extremely well with the new RMS CAD system that we're going to go live here, hopefully in the next few months. Cost-wise, we did go out there and look at different vendors. LensLock, we went out there and looked at them. They're right around 210,000 for them. Then we also looked at Axon. Axon became problematic and cost prohibitive just because you start with the base with them, and then there's all these add-ons. You're paying for right now we're paying by terabyte, and it gets extremely expensive when you're paying by terabyte. The WatchGuard there is no data limit, so you're not paying by the terabyte anymore. Also, auto transcription for if we need auto transcription, that's another 3,500 for Axon that they throw on. It just piece by piece by piece, it adds up and gets extremely expensive. The Motorola contract is an all exclusive program. It's broken down over 5 years. The body cameras are replaced at 3 years. So they come in, every body camera at year 3 is replaced with brand new body cameras. Also, this is the first time body cameras actually have interchangeable batteries. So Motorola is the only provider with this right now. So basically, part of this contract was every body camera will have 2 batteries per camera. So there'll be a docking station in their car for the spare battery. So if the battery dies within their unit, they'll have that spare to immediately go ahead and interchange that battery over to the Motorola camera. So like right now, our guys are having to come back in and dock their cameras 2 or 3 times a night to keep them charged. This mitigates those types of things. And if you have an incident that takes place and you don't have your body camera, I mean, liability and those types of things on the city is just huge. Some things we're adding in new are the body cameras, or sorry, the dash cameras. So people ask why dash cameras. It provides a different perspective or view of what the officer is doing. It also helps in prosecution of cases, moving violations, stop sign violations, DUI prosecution. It helps officers do their job, and it makes it a lot more easier for them to prosecute these cases for these type of offenses. Other than that, I'm open to questions if you got council has anything for me.
Questions for Scott? Motion?
I move to approve a 5-year contract with Motorola Solutions for body camera, dash camera, and command central software.
Thanks, Caitlin.
Second.
Second by Tawny. Any discussion, Caitlin?
Nope.
Tawny? Anybody else? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? There you go.
Thank you.
Motion passes 5-0. All right, last on our general business is Ben to talk to us about an audit committee. I think I talked to you guys all about this. It has to do with our insurance and maintaining our low risk status. And it's just something that we need to get implemented in order to continue to have good standing. Not
Yeah.
that we would lose it, but it's just another level of support.
I sat in this chair about a year ago and said the reasons that we shouldn't have an audit committee, the reasons that it doesn't make
We
sense.
forgot about
We
that.
don't remember.
There's no incentive quite like a financial incentive, and we have been incentivized by the Utah Local Governments Trust to reduce our score, our fraud risk assessment from low risk to very low risk. And the audit committee is one easy way to do that. It's certainly not a bad idea. What it does is we're creating a committee of 3 people that will oversee the financial audit, the internal audit function, which is a function of the finance director, and the selection process for an auditor. That was one of my first tasks. Just a little bit of background on that was to select a new audit firm when I started 2 years ago. And for the finance director to kind of lead that charge is maybe it could be a conflict of interest. Ultimately, it's the city manager that makes the recommendation currently, but this would transfer that responsibility to the audit committee. So that said, this is essentially a delegation of some of the responsibilities of the city council in the management of the financial risk of the organization.
All right.
And I would add, thank you, Ronnie, for pointing out that the ordinance actually did not specify that the 3rd member should be external to the organization. So it's a 3-member committee, 1 council member, 1 staff member that does not have any association with the finance department. And the 3rd member is likely a community member with financial expertise. That's a position that would be compensated, and it was not included in the ordinance. So I would suggest make the recommendation that in the motion to approve, that we include that clarification that that 3rd position is an external individual.
Right, and we're not appointing tonight. So we'll do that when we have to get the committee going. So tonight we're just approving the ordinance to establish the audit committee. Ronnie?
I was just gonna make a motion. I move to adopt ordinance 2023-09, an ordinance enacting Moab Municipal Code 2.94 to create and establish an audit committee with an edit to the draft ordinance, making it clear that the 3rd member of the committee, who is the financial expert, be from outside the city or an external member.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
All right, motion by Ronnie, seconded by Kaylin. Any further discussion, Ronnie? Kaylin?
Nope.
Anybody else? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Ben. All right, that's it with our general business. We move on to city manager updates. We will be having a closed session, by the way. Just, I think I mentioned that to you guys, but just so you know.
All right, I think most of you heard this. We do have new computers, new laptops for each of you. So reach out to Denny and he can set them up for you on an individual appointment basis. It's Public Works Week. Today, our Public Works and Public Utilities crews were at HMK for the Touch a Truck event. And wanted to invite all of you to a barbecue on this Thursday at Old City Park. Noonish, it's flexible. It's going to be a lot of fun and games. If you're into cornhole, then we've got an event for you because there will be plenty. We'd love to see each of you out there. A reminder that we have the Water Resource Utility Management Plan Public Open House tomorrow at the Grand Center from 5 to 7 p.m. So that's May 24th from 5 to 7 p.m. Hope we have a lot of interest, a lot of, activated residents on this issue. So we hope to see everyone out there. And finally, the Moab Arts Festival kicks off this weekend, May 27th and 28th at Swanee Park. That's all I've got.
Great, thank you. Mayor council reports. We will start with you, Kaylin.
I attended the WERP stakeholders meeting. That was very informative. And I went to a solid waste special service district board meeting. We're in the process of acquiring a new compactor truck. Woohoo. We have a very aging fleet, and we're in the process of contracting with a consultant to do sort of long-term financial planning and rate analysis. So you and the city will ultimately get to discuss the outcomes of some of that. That's all I've got.
Thanks, Kaylin. Ronnie?
Okay. I'm just going to give this a plug because I mentioned it last meeting. On May 11th, I attended the Library River History Films event where they were showing several river running films from our region from the 1940s and 1970s. And just as a reminder, this is the 3-part series with Roy Webb. And the next one is going to be June 22nd, 7 to 9 p.m. at Star Hall, focusing on the Glen Canyon area. On May 15th, I attended a training that Cora Phillips, our emergency manager, I'm going to get her title wrong, at the sheriff's office, was promoting. And this was the FEMA IS 402 NIMS overview for senior officials course, which is very interesting. And the purpose of this course is to familiarize elected officials and then also other senior officials, such as department heads, with their role in supporting incident management within the National Incident Management System, the NIMS structure. So you guys might recall back in February, Cora emailed us all some suggestions of trainings that might be good for public officials to have. And so you can do several of these on other ones online. So you can go back and look at her email. I think it was maybe through Carly, but it was back February 15th. So lots of other trainings available there. May 16th, let's see. We had an EMS board meeting. I am just a community rep, so I'll let Jason report, but only because I have my EMS week card here, just a little plug to let Jason know. I spoke to Andy, the director, today, because one of the things happening this week, just in case it's helpful for the community, is you can go and get free training and certification in CPR and first aid from EMS on Thursday, the 25th. If you go up to the EMS offices at 10 a.m., 1 p.m. or 4 p.m. And that's up at the top of 100 North. And I did attend a barbecue they were having with the hospital and other first responders today, which was fun. Let's see. I took photos at the Museum of the Sulphur Mustangs, who were there for their International Heritage Week of Animals. So I just want to thank the museum for having those programs. and put in a plug for those of you who like animals and are interested in professionals with autism and just good stories. Temple Grandin's going to be in town on May 30th. Then we get I also attended the Water Utility Resource Management Plan Zoom on the 22nd of May. And people had some really good questions. So that is supposed to be available online for anybody who missed it. I was wondering if along with future topics for discussion, along with speed limits, if we can maybe come back and have some of these discussions about parking in neighborhoods like the Youngs and the Easons brought up tonight, because I think it's not the only area where people are having issues. That was it.
Thanks, Ronnie. Tony.
Okay, I attended at Canyonlands Healthcare Special Service District. It was pretty short, but we just had normal financial reports, nursing reports. We did approve a fraud and abuse policy. It's just a state requirement. We talked a little bit about developing some of the property that the district still holds. Joette is meeting with Jen Sadoff monthly.
Yes.
And seeing what we can come up with on that front as far as some housing goes for healthcare workers and possibly maybe some commercial development on those parcels, because some of them are zoned commercial. The healthcare district will change, or next month is going to change our meeting place. We've really struggled with the internet at the Grand Center. It's just not, the rooms that they've put us in they're just not conducive to having hybrid meetings. You can't hear the air conditioner runs. So we will be meeting at the conference room in the Larson building next month. That will be noticed in the paper, and then I think we'll try and make a decision about where to have those meetings from here on out. I also went to a housing authority meeting. It was also short because they had a closed session, so I left, but we still have many people. We have at Cinema Court, there are still 57 families waiting for 1 bedroom, 58 families waiting for a 2-bedroom, and 44 families waiting for a 3-bedroom. The MAPS housing wait list is 55 for 1-bedrooms and 23 for 2-bedrooms. So it's still an issue. And let me see. Arroyo Crossing Phase 1, they have received funding for 8 of the 9 families. That loan should close June 1st. Arroyo Crossing Phase 2 will be 9 more homes. And there was some red tape involved in that. So they're only doing 9 homes, but Arroyo Crossing Phase 3 will be 11 homes instead of 10. And all that seems to be moving along pretty quickly. I did attend a museum meeting. The museum had several trustees that termed out, and so they needed trustees. I brought up to the past president I asked if the museum had anything in their bylaws that they had to have a city rep, like they have to have a county rep. They do not. So I am considered a full trustee, not just an ex officio. And I attended the event on Friday about, I'm going to say this wrong, for yo-yo cattle. And at first I thought, what am I going to learn about cows? But I learned a lot. They are a breed of cows that are native to Mexico. They're smaller than our normal range cattle. They're a little more hardy. They adapt better. They taste better. They do taste better. I tasted them. Sorry. No, there was food. And they can eat browse more than just grass. So there are some ranchers that are experimenting with them, and they're keeping they're keeping very close tabs on them. They all have little GPS collars and they have pedometers, so they see how far they walk and how far they go to water. It was really quite interesting.
Eat one of those there.
Are they on Strava?
Are they what?
They on Strava?
I ate it because it was in a bowl and it was cooked. And it was very good. And like Ronnie mentioned, Dr. Temple Grandin will be at Star Hall next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Tickets are $25 and doors open at 5:15, and she will begin to speak promptly at 6 o'clock, and she has to leave by 8 o'clock because she has to be back in. She has to fly out of Grand Junction back somewhere. I can't remember. That was it, I think.
Thanks, Tony. Luke.
Yeah, so I attended the local homeless council meeting on the 10th. We had somebody call in from the Grand Junction VA to let us know about HUD's VASH program, which provides vouchers to eligible veterans. There's currently 2 vouchers available in Moab, although there are some qualifications, some of which are income-based, and the individuals also must be homeless or imminently homeless, which is personally feel a bit of a drawback to the program. The homeless levels have kind of stabilized a little bit. Moab Solutions is currently engaging with 23 individuals on a regular basis. 5 of those individuals have jobs but can't find housing. And then all 3 of the Grand County organizations that have applied for DHS funding from the state received it. So MVMC, Seek Haven, and the Free Health Clinic in partnership with Moab Solutions all received funding for a variety of programs. A lot of them are focused on kind of like emergency shelter or homelessness prevention. And then the Free Health Clinic partnership is focusing on addressing the healthcare needs of the homeless in our community. I attended the MOP meeting where we got some updates about some legislation that's water specific within the state. Got updates on the new Porcupine Rim campground and kind of the proposed changes up there, and then had a pretty broad discussion about flood notification systems and emergency response in the community, which I found to be really helpful and interesting. And then yeah, participated in the WORMP focus group last night. I thought there's some really good information and questions presented, and I'm looking forward to the open house tomorrow and encourage everybody who's interested to come. But I think that's about it.
Thanks, Luke. Jason.
So on the 15th, we had an airport board meeting. Not a whole lot was kind of discussed with that. They are starting to work on the draft airport management plan, or the which we should see more of that in the near future. On 5/16, I had an EMS, Grand County Emergency Medical Services meeting. A few things that kind of came up in that. They talked about call volume, which March was down 20% call volume. April was up 10%, which I think kind of coincides with kind of how the community is and businesses are talking in town. I think they kind of follow a similar trajectory. Some interesting numbers is between 2019 and 2023, there's been a 27% increase in EMS calls, and which means the EMS is growing for better or worse at about 5 to 8% per year. Stuff, which is very nice. They are working. The emergency director with EMS is working with Grand County Dispatch to kind of come up with a solution for radios and channels and who's doing what on what channel and what channels get used for what, to to kind of kind of make incidents easier and more streamlined, so people know what radio communication they're doing. And then they are doing one thing that they are doing in conjunction with the fire department, which is pretty cool, is July 6th and 7th. They're having a Junior Emergency Services Academy, and it's for children or for kids in 5th to 7th grade. They can come down and be firefighters and EMTs for a couple of days, and it's pretty cool. I saw pictures of it last year, and it was pretty cool. And I had I knew a couple kids that went to it that really enjoyed it and liked it and stuff. So that was kind of, they have some other things going on. They're kind of in an influx of billing, changing billing companies. And then Medicaid is trying to change some things. So they're kind of working through some things with that. But yeah, things are pretty good with the EMS. And then on 5/19, I had an opportunity to meet with Senator Hinkins, Senator Colmore, Senator McKell, and Republican Lyman in town, and kind of take them around, show them around some of the things that we've been doing within the community, discussed housing, fractional ownership, and showed what the city's doing, which was really good. And then today I had an opportunity to go to a luncheon with the Lieutenant Governor. It was really good. That's all I have.
Thanks, Jason. Well, since our last meeting, it's been all politics for me. Governor Cox was in town last Monday. He was at the high school and I had needed to be there to greet him and to walk him back to his SUV. Had an opportunity in that short time to say, we really need you to pay attention to what's happening in Moab. And then I got a call from the Lieutenant Governor who came down to have those conversations today. We also, as Jason mentioned, we met with our legislators, Hinkins, McKell, Colmore, and Lyman. Talk about fractional ownership. We showed them housing so that they can get a sense. I think walking away from that meeting, one of the things I asked is, we wanted you guys to see what Moab is really about. And you come down here, you go to the parks, you go hiking, you ride your bikes, but you don't know what's really going on behind the scenes to make sure you have a good visit. And they seem to appreciate that. So it was worthwhile in that regard. And it also kind of opened that door so that during legislative session, we have some folks we can talk to if they start doing things that we're concerned about. And then Representative Congressman John Curtis is here next week. So like I said, it's been all politics for me for the last 10 days. I also had a meeting with the Boundary Commission regarding the annexation protest for the Shamrock property, the apartments that are going in south of town. We'll be meeting again this Thursday to consider the standing of the protests that we've got. And this Thursday, the Film Commission, there's a meeting at the Mark regarding the Film Commission, either moving out to the Red Cliffs Foundation or staying with the county. So if you have any interest in where you'd like to see the Film Commission, I'll be going to that meeting. And then I also have a AOG meeting that day as well. So that's all I have. And with that, we need a motion to go into closed session.
Go into closed session to discuss strategy of reasonably imminent and or pending litigation.
All right, Kaylin, second.
Second.
All right, motion by Kaylin, second by Luke. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. We're in executive session. Oops.